Zawolik News Network, where history happens. Hello and welcome to ZNN. I'm your host, Bob Goodman. We now continue our Don't Poke the Bear series on the American Revolution. The big idea will explore the causes of the American Revolution. Throughout, we will come to an understanding of how a small group of colonists stood up to the bully king over in England to eventually go on to win their independence. Salutary neglect allowed the self-governed colonies to enjoy the opportunities present in the New World so long as they continue to make money for the British. Last episode concluded that the French and Indian War had indebted the colonies a great deal to the king for sending British troops to protect them. While this gesture seems innocuous, the king was only trying to protect his investment. The effect of the war had created a contentious relationship that would only get worse as the king attempted to make up his financial losses. Today's guiding question, or GQ, will answer: what impact did the proclamation of 1763 have on the relationship between England and their American colonies?
But Britain's victory came at a cost, a £60 million cost. They were now broke, in a lot of debt, and had to come up with some way to repay it. So they went to the colonies and said, okay, listen up. So a huge part of the war was spent protecting you from the French, and now we have no money because of it. So I'm not sure what you're saying here. Okay, so we spent a lot of money protecting you from the French, right? Right. And now we're broke. That certainly is a pickle. Listen to me. We spent all of our money protecting you, and now we need money. Can you please pay us back some money? No. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and tax you. In 1764, Britain introduced the Sugar Act, forcing the colonists to import sugar and molasses exclusively from the British and to pay duties on them. Then a year later, they introduced the extremely controversial Stamp Act, and it worked a little something like this. Hello, shopkeep. Hello, Mr. Bungleberry. Here's the deed for your new shack. Stamp. That'll be 3 pence, please. Wait, what was that? It's the new tax. I get a stamp on any paper or documentation I make, and you have to pay for it. Would you like to see this pamphlet that explains everything? Yes, please. Okay. Stamp. 2 pence, please. This is awful. You know what? Just give me a deck of cards so I can go gamble my pain away. Okay. No. Don't do it. Stamp. Obviously, the colonists were like, hey my dudes, this new tax legislation right here, this is BS. Until now they had enjoyed relative freedom to rule themselves, and now suddenly Britain was asserting its control. They were especially unhappy because they didn't have any representatives in the parliament that was levying taxes on them. So they protested. Orators gave fiery speeches. British goods were boycotted, and anyone loyal to the British found themselves increasingly harassed. The whole thing actually began to take quite a toll on British business, and after just a couple years, the British were forced to repeal the Stamp Act. But we still desperately need money. What should we do? We could try taxing the colonies. Great idea. Wait, didn't we literally just try that and it failed miserably? Man, look at me. I look fabulous. Have you ever seen such a handsome boy? No siree, Georgie. No way. You're the handsomest, smartest, most popular king that ever lived, and everybody likes you. You're doing such a good job. Your Majesty? Oh, you're still here. Get the hell out. So in 1766, the British made a declaration saying, we can do what we want because we're in charge and you can all go suck it. Then they levied a whole bunch of new taxes on the Americans via import duties. Glass? There's a tax for that. Lead? There's a tax for that. Paper? Tea? Oil? There's a tax for that. And once again, the Americans boycotted British goods, British business felt the pinch, and the British had to back down. Alright, this is ridiculous. They're my colonies and I have to be able to assert my control. Repeal all the new taxes except for the one on tea. Also send 1,000 troops to Boston to take control. Oh, and make the colonists pay for them. And as British troops arrived, the tension in Boston was palpable. You could cut it with a knife, and it was all about to come to a head. On March 5th,
Introducing King George III of England, who had been crowned in 1760. He was known for being proud, stubborn, and as one historian put, he was very stupid. Really, really stupid. Hey man, I'm just citing some sources, don't blame me. He was a man of action, though, and he set out to solve some major problems of protecting the colonists from Native American attacks while also getting England more money. He hoped to accomplish this by passing a series of acts, the first known as the Proclamation of 1763. This proclamation drew a line down the crest of the Appalachian Mountains. Colonists were meant to stay to the east of it, and Native Americans were meant to stay to the west of it. Seemed pretty simple, right? Except it wasn't. The colonists who had just gained this new land to settle and were used to pretty much going wherever they wanted called this an act of tyranny. They argued that the land had already been mostly settled and that this was the only place for farmers to farm. Hey now, John Locke, I don't think we need you quite yet, but stay tuned. Because of this, colonists ignored the king's proclamation and settled westward anyway, evoking the wrath of a lot of the natives in the area and forcing England to send an additional 7,500 more troops to protect them. Now, in an effort to gain more money for England, the next act that was passed was the Sugar Act of 1764. This act lowered the price of molasses, sugar, wine, and rum. Wait, lowered? How could this possibly help the economy? Well, the goal of this act was actually to directly compete with other competitors, specifically smugglers, who like to steal goods from ships, sell them at a lower price, and keep the profits for themselves. In addition, this act also allowed British courts to try colonial smugglers back in England, taking away some of their colonial judiciary rights. These rights were rights that some of them had had for over 100 years. Now, it should be mentioned that these courts were notoriously lenient when it came to smugglers because who didn't like cheap sugar? So, needless to say, the colonists were not fond of this act, specifically the lower and middle class colonists. The only colonists that really liked it were wealthy merchants who directly traded with England. Yay, mercantilism! Quartering Act of 1765, and whew, boy, this one was a doozy. While all this was going on, colonists were still disobeying the Proclamation of 1763 and getting themselves killed by Native Americans. More and more troops were being sent to protect them, and they were running out of places to live. Thus, the Quartering Act was passed. This act ordered colonists to provide British troops with quarters, or houses, as well as furnish the soldiers with candles, firing beds, cooking utensils, salt, vinegar, and beer cider. All of this cost the colonists a lot of money and, of course, an invasion of their personal space. It goes without saying that the colonists did not like this one bit. Some colonists said that this was worse than paying taxes. Other government assemblies refused to obey. In both cases, they suffered consequences from the king. With all these acts, and the rise of Sons of Liberty that can be found in the Stamp Act video right here, tensions were mounting. King George was getting crazier, and all of the rights of the people were in jeopardy. Thomas Jefferson said it best when he said the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And that time was fast approaching, starting with the worst snowball fight in American history.
Expert. Since I'm no Dr. Phil, I'm going to briefly hand it over to our in-house relationship expert, Dr. Killwise, for his 2 cents. Doc.
Hi guys, Dr. Killwise here. Taking some time to be single after an abusive relationship is really important. In my professional opinion, America should wait before committing themselves to another government. After the events of the Proclamation of 1763, I think the year 1776 would be ideal. This is Dr. Killwise, and that's my 2 cents. Bye, guys.
Man, where was this guy 2 years ago? I could have avoided that whole diner fiasco if I had just been given that advice. Anyway, time heals all wounds, so I'll be able to put that behind me soon enough. And since time is money, that diner will be able to move on as soon as I'm all paid up with them. So yeah, Time and money heal everything. This is Bob Goodman, and that's the big idea. The big idea!